on some other business, attending a meeting in, I think, Houston or somewhere in Texas, representing the council, and he'll give his report when he gets back. We've got not a whole lot on the agenda. Hopefully we can get through it. At this moment, I'd like to ask Councilwoman Gray if she could give the opening prayer and reading of the deceased.
Thank you, Andrew, for this honor. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today and we ask for your gracious blessings on this day. We know that there's time for some of our people to go, but it's always brings sadness. And last night we lost an Osage from the Osage district. And Lord, we just lift that family up, the Daniels family, and as they proceed with these next 4 days. Lord, we just pray for all of our Osage people, not only just the shareholders, that as they've gone through the strategic planning, Lord, we ask that good thoughts, that the right ideas for the future of the Osage Nation. And Lord, I pray for the leadership that is here, and as they're on their travels and as they travel here, and one that we have is ill today. Lord, we just ask to lift up my colleagues here, and Lord, we just ask for a blessing for them. We ask blessing for our families. Lord, we ask for our blessing for our producers and those who engage in working with us. May it be, may there be good conversation. May there be peace. May there be opportunity for us to work together, partnerships. And Lord, we ask that as this Bureau of Indian Affairs is here today, Lord, that we just pray for them and all the work that they do. You know, what they say, what you do for the least of our brothers, you do for me. And so when I say that, I say what we do for our Osage people. And we've got people that are hurting our communities, and so it's important for us to create these jobs and these opportunities. But Lord, we ask to have your blessing from the youngest to the oldest in our tribal nation. Lord, give you all the thanks and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I don't have the list. Do you have it? Do you have the list of the deceased? Okay. Thank you, Lacey. Anna Walker from Red Oak, Texas. Michael Moncravey. Melvin Osborne. Patrick Albarda. Billy Cannon, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Kenneth Bird, Plano, Texas. I know that those are the 1998. I mean 2008, sorry. Okay, let me finish. I think that was a typo. Kenneth Bird, Plano, Texas. Dan Warmbolt, Dallas, Texas. Helen K. Perrier, Surprise, Arizona. Donald Matthews, The Dalles, Oregon. Janie Watkins, Evansville, Arkansas. Robert Boren, West Fork, Arkansas. James Weathers, El Paso, Texas. Ken Kenworthy, Oklahoma City. Pete Marshall, Dodge City, Kansas. Lenora Brave. Richard Roberts, I know that's Tulsa. Patsy Isaacs. And that'll be the reading of our deceased.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. Roll call.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Foreman,
Present.
Councilwoman Gray,
Here.
Councilwoman Harlan,
Here.
Councilman Redcorn, Councilman Red Eagle,
Here.
Councilman Rebar,
Here.
Chairman Waller, Secretary Yates.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, the roll call's done. Moving on to the next agenda. Superintendent's report, Superintendent Phillips.
Thank you. The Osage Agency Branch of Field Operations would like to report 8 trucking permits were prepared, 19 well pluggings were witnessed, 5 leases were checked for production and primary term, 8 well sites were pictured, 54 lease inspections were completed and 22 follow-ups, 2 LAC unit proving were witnessed, 1 ingress and egress route was set, 30 gas meter provings, 3 tank trucks checked for permit, 72 landowner leasing meetings were reported, 5 complaints responded to, 6 spills, leaks inspected with 17 follow-ups, 62 tanks were gauged, 3 tank bottom removals were witnessed, 12 run tickets were figured, 24 gauger calculations versus purchaser calculations. The branch of lease management reported 2 leases were approved, 35 assignments were approved, 2 were returned, 25 division orders were approved, there were 29 lease terminations reported. Oil and gas rentals collected during the month, 14,528.44. Oil and gas bonus collected, 4,700. Water usage royalty paid, 7,151.90 cents was reported. They reported for the month of December 14,848 wells, with 3,232 being saltwater disposal wells. For those leases under 25 CFR 214, they reported that APAC had 29,962.21 tons, paid a royalty of 29,375.89 cents. Burbank Materials reported 13,298.08 tons, royalty paid 14,228.95 cents. Candy Creek Crusher reported 11,996.01 tons, with a royalty paid of 10,424.54 cents. Schmidt Brothers reported 288 cubic yards, paid a royalty of $216. Rocky Banks, 270 cubic yards, and paid $225. The branch of subsurface approved 5 drilling permits, 5 workover permits, and 8 plugging permits. They did not receive any completion reports in the month of December. The branch of accounting, total oil produced for the month that was reported, 47,392.11. Royalty barrels, 7,915.23. Royalty paid, 432,817.94. Total gas produced, 606,024 MCFs. Royalty paid, 129,722.36 or 35 cents. Total tank bottom was 88.42. Royalty barrels, 14.74. Royalty paid was $82.39. The branch of enforcement and lease compliance reported 1 EA covering 4 permits. They issued a 3 FONSIs for 9 wells. Number of non-compliance letters issued was 12. Number of extension letters were 3. Number of spill remediation and reporting notice letters issued were 6. Number of exemption approval letters were 2. And they had 1 10-day letter. And that pretty much takes care of the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councilman Rebar.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Superintendent, it said on here we received around 7,000 in water usage. Who is using the water and what source is that water from?
I would have to get that information from my supervisory realty specialist. I apologize for that. I'll be happy to do that for you and return it.
Okay, I'm just curious, I don't remember seeing water usage before. Maybe it's been reported and I just didn't catch it.
Do you know who that was?
When you did 24 gaugers calculations versus the purchasers, do you just randomly pick certain ones to do each
Yes.
month?
Yes, we do.
And have you found that they've been pretty, accurate? Do they
Yeah.
correlate?
Yes.
All right, that's good. That's all I have. Well, one more thing, if you don't mind. These, all this information that you send us, each month, the letters, this data right here, I think we've talked about this once before. Most of your work is done in Excel spreadsheets, and that's really easily, imported into a database like Access or something similar. It sure would be handy. So if we were wanting to go back and recall maybe some data from 3 months ago, not knowing exactly which meeting it might have been at, we'd have to stop and open up each one of your data, sets of data until we find it. If we could import that into one database where we could search for different subject matters, it sure would be convenient. So I would like to know if we're gonna have an IT meeting following our mental council meeting, and it'd be something that I'd like for the IT meeting to consider, but I'd like to see if we couldn't coordinate a way to take your data and import it into a database that'll make it searchable for us. And I'll give you an example. Say Purdue came to us to give us an update on CO2. Well, it may be a recent meeting, the last 3 or 4 months, but for us to be able to go see that correspondence, it'd be nice to have a drop-down box and search by certain criteria. We could type in Purdue, CO2, search the whole database, and probably take us right to that without having to open up each month's of the superintendent's letters. It's just something that maybe you might consider trying to help us with.
Could your IT people, could they take the information we've got in the quarterly report and cross it over to the Excel sheet? Because a lot of it's in Excel in there too.
That's what I was thinking. It's easy enough to do. I think Councilwoman
We would have,
Ray
I mean,
might be able to address that at her meeting today. That's all I have.
I'm gonna see if they want to respond to that before I chair something.
yeah.
Can I answer
Council-
Paul?
Council-
Can I answer Paul?
Sure. Get the side down. Superintendent, did you want to respond to anything that?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about our monthly reports, and the only thing that I'm providing to you on a monthly report is, in Excel, is on the permit approvals.
Okay.
So everything else that is being provided is done on a quarterly basis, where we come in with our jet drive and download it on Lacey's computer. And I think if there's something that we can do there and working with your IT, we've got an IT person over there. I mean, I think the IT's experts could get together and see what they can come up with.
I've got a question before I let Councilwoman Foreman take over. On your total production, you've got 47,392.11. Is that, can you bring me that? Is that correct? I mean, is that for the month of December?
Yes, we didn't get the total. Now, there's some that's lagging, that's going to show up this next month, because some of the money wasn't processed, so therefore we couldn't show the product.
Because that's showing maybe a week's worth of
Right.
production.
I mean, so there's
It's kind of
actually like
alarming,
money.
1,500 a day.
Right, well, like
Yeah.
with money wise, we're like there's like $2 million that's gonna be over, that is gonna fall in this next month, dollar wise.
That's from December.
So another hiccup, but that won't affect our royalty
No.
or our payments?
No,
No.
Okay, I just seen that and I was,
no, it just showed up short. We had some that didn't get processed right then, so.
Okay, sounds good as long as it goes through. Councilwoman Foreman.
You mentioned that we get spreadsheets in the quarterly reports.
Well, I'm not sure what all, I mean,
Well,
I just
I-
wanted to look at everything.
I actually know what's in the quarterly
Okay.
reports, because I've looked through all 29 of them that we've
I
received,
don't think they're accepted.
every single page, and they're not in Excel.
Okay,
And the permits, also the permits, what it is a PDF of what looks like an Excel spreadsheet. But we have, Councilman Rivard has tried to convert that to an Excel, but it's pieced together, so it's really difficult to convert it. I mean, we have the technology to convert, but it's not an easily converted PDF. So it would be great if you could just send it over in an Excel, and we can start working on possibly collecting that data. And this came up because I was curious on the drilling permits and the leasing permits, what we got for the whole year of 2019. It'd be nice to have a year-end report of everything, you know, the total drilling permits approved, the total leases approved, and without going back month by month and counting it up. You know, we just don't have that information. We can compile it, but if you already have it in a spreadsheet format, that
we don't
would
have a
save-
total, we'd have to go back and count.
Yeah, we'd have to do the same thing.
Okay. Okay, that's all
We'd
I
have to
have.
generate that report.
Okay, that's all I have.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, I wanted to ask him if you think that that should formally be in our committee, then I would be willing to accept that. And then we'll work with the superintendent to find an easy way to merge the data so we can create not only searches, but also graph and pie charts and whatever we can do. And I think it's always nice that we're able to, superintendent, to get that snapshot and see the running totals. I'd be happy to work with you and Richard, and I'm sure we'll put that, it's not on our agenda, but I'll put it as a follow-up to put it on our next, how we can generate these reports. That's all I had, Chairman.
Okay, anything else, or we need to move on? Okay, thank you, Superintendent.
You're welcome.
I forgot to mention at the beginning, on new business, I was gonna add one agenda item. Councilman Reaver wanted to, he's got a quarterly report due for the road working committee, and he wants to run it by us. I don't know if we need our approval, but we definitely need to be aware of what he's submitting to Candy Thomas and her group. So, Paul, would you like to take that now?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Candy Thomas has a responsibility of submitting a quarterly report that has to do with the $3 million congressional authorized funding for planning. And that's the one where we have $1.25 million earmarked for emergency well plugs, $1.25 million for non-emergency, 500 balance, I assume is for our discretion. This report is due this afternoon, so I have, for all the council members, it's on our board bucket too, I believe, a list of the emergency wells that Orphan Well Committee have identified. Two of the wells have already been addressed. The well number 63 was the well on Performance Petroleum's property, and it turned out that that well was not leaking, wasn't purging. It turned out to be a leak in an old abandoned pipeline, which Performance repaired and remediated at their own expense. And then the only other well that we've worked on was the Shambles 68, where we had a huge expense related to the plugging of that well. But this report lists all the emergency wells that have been identified so far. And there's going to be over 700. The Orphan Well Committee has determined already that 700 of the 1,602 orphan wells are probably candidates for plugging. But these are the list of the ones that were considered emergency. And the Candy Thomas also wanted a definition of what is an emergency well. And we deemed it as any well that's harming or suspect of harming the environment due to the conditions of that particular well bore. So this is a report that I signed as the well plugging committee chairman. And I would just like the council to be aware that I'd like to submit this to Candy Thomas and even maybe provide the superintendent a copy as well, just so that she'll stay in the loop on what we're doing. So I don't know if I need the full council approval or not, but if it's appropriate, then I would like the approval of the council to submit this to Candy Thomas and to the superintendent.
Councilwoman Dragon.
Yes, on well number 63, you said that was, it was well determined not to be leaking, but, I mean, what was that other explanation that you had on that?
This particular well wasn't considered an emergency well,
Oh.
because if you may remember, I don't remember who circulated the photos, but it was just a really ugly mess of puddles of oil
Right.
all over the place. I mean, it was nasty. And we thought it was coming from that well, and it went to the superintendent's office, and I think she acknowledged it was an emergency well. And so when Performance Petroleum brought out their own backhoe and started digging around, they realized it was not that well at all that was leaking. They found a buried line that had a valve, a leaky valve, or a hole in the pipeline that was purging all that oil. They patched the line, remediated the soil, restored the surface at their own expense, and so that well really wasn't an emergency well, but we thought it was.
Oh, okay, well then maybe that's why it says, the Osage agency has identified 4 emergency wells, and we have it underneath there with the remarks as being purging oil and gas, well determined not leaking, 10/17/19. So is that the right description that needs to be on there, or do we need to modify it?
That particular sentence was at the request of Candy Thomas. When I was at the strategic planning meeting Monday evening with you
Right.
guys, she pulled me aside and said, hey, when you send in this report, would you please give a definition of what an emergency well is? And so we just stuck that in there. That didn't really particularly have to do with the group of wells above it or below it. It's just to accommodate her for whatever reason that she needed that definition. So we just stuck that sentence in there to satisfy her request.
Oh, are you
Go
done?
ahead, no, I'm still not clear, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm not so sure that we need to approve this or not, but are you making that in a motion, or does someone need to make a motion in a second so we can go into discussion? Because we're kind
Oh,
of deep
yeah.
into discussion.
Right.
Are you making that a motion to approve this?
I really would feel better if we did.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, I don't see anything on financials on here.
No.
Who prepared this report?
I asked Bill Lynn to put it together for me. We communicate with each other over the last week.
I think with a quarterly report like this, it would be important to show the work done and the expenditures on the account. So
That's being
so that
compiled.
we could somehow, keep track of where we're at on it, because this well here in particular, is it in excess of $250,000 now?
Yes.
I'm hoping
The,
I'm hoping that's the exception, because with that, we're only gonna be able
Well,
to.
you know
plug
it is.
12 wells.
You know it is. I would anticipate most of our wells can be plugged $7,500 to $15,000 range.
Right, I understand.
This particular well was drilled over 100 years ago. The actual creek that ran by there had to be rerouted. A road had to be built. The existing roads from that long ago aren't there anymore. So we had $65,000 just in dirt work and gravel. Then there was all kinds of other complications with it, and I would have liked to have included the finances. Candy Thomas, it wasn't a requirement for her.
It isn't?
No. But the thing is, even if it was, I wouldn't be prepared to deliver that because it's over in Jim Littleton's department, and Lacey and Linnea have been sending over the invoices, and they're not all compiled yet. They're still coming in. So they were waiting until they all came in, get a final, list of the expenses, which I'd be happy to bring before the council once it's submitted to me.
It may not be required for Ms. Thomas, but I think it'd be good for us to
Well, I think so.
kind of
too.
run a tally of what's being spent and how it's being spent, because when I started seeing them invoices coming in, I was
Oh,
like, it was astronomical.
it's
So,
sickening, yeah.
Councilman Red Eagle.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just curious, he's got this list, we did this, plug the shambles well, which took a lot of money. Is there anything on y'all's list that needs to be plugged next, or do you have a list?
Everything that we have listed as emergency, we can get a letter on.
So any of these wells qualified, or do you know that now?
Well, on the list, no, I mean, we don't know which one's got high fluid levels, which ones are purging. I mean, as far as on the list, all the ones that we discovered was the emergency ones that we give you a letter on each one of those.
Okay.
Councilwoman Harlan, I'm sorry.
This question is for Superintendent. Is there, any financial assistance through the Bureau for plugging these wells that are emergency? And I've asked this before, and I can already see the answer, but, just for our constituents out here that, people put a bond down and they were given their bonds back and able to walk away. As a lawyer, that creates some legal questions for me.
Now that I do not know about them walking away. My understanding is that at one time, the Bureau of Indian Affairs had fundings that they collected from bonds, and that they entered into a contract with the OMC, and that was what generated these, the Osage Minerals Council plugging committee. Now, I will tell you that the agency has collected additional bonds, and we do need to see about getting those monies into that well committee, so it'll give you additional monies. But those monies are identified for specific wells on that particular lease.
Right.
So I think that in the past, and this has been a concern of mine, because I don't know when those monies came over to the Minerals Council, if those monies were actually used to plug whatever wells that they were collected on. But as a superintendent, having to deal with these individuals that are calling me and complaining about the wells, and we're going in there and collecting these monies, I would like to see the Minerals Council utilize whatever monies that we receive from that bond covering that particular lease to be used on that property.
Is that, would that be the $5,000 bonds per quarter? Is that what you're talking about? Because that might plug
A half a well?
half.
Yeah. And that's another thing, I have, since I've been over here, I've asked the Minerals Council if they wanted me to go in and look at bonds that are on all these leases right now, because you and I both know that they're not adequate bonds. And of course, the OMC has continued to say maybe we'll do that later. But as we continue to look at these tracts of land that are not producing, I think one's going to be considered today, that's on the agenda. As we continue to look at these tracts of land where there's been no production since 2002, then part of terminating the lease, they are required to plug the bond. And I think in the past, it wasn't happening.
Plug the well.
Plug the well, yes, thank you so much for that correction. So in the past, it wasn't pretty much enforced like it is today with me. If it's not plugged, then I am gonna go after the bond. But you and we all know that that bond is probably not gonna be sufficient. So what we need to do is get with the OMC and see what we can do about doing transferring those monies over here, and then you all plugging what you can on that property.
Go ahead.
Okay, as a follow-up, in addition to meeting with the well plugging committee, because obviously that's something that you would work out with Councilman Rebar. But are there other funding sources as our trustee that you can identify, ask for assistance to help us with this? Because we know, I mean, we're going after grant monies that we know is not gonna cover all the needs. It's not gonna plug 700 wells. And we have so many more that need to be taken care of. That's just the first 700 they've identified. So is there something that the agency level can go after to assist us, rather than us having to apply for, I mean, we're still gonna apply for grants, obviously, but for us to have to lean on whether somebody is going to fund us or not, which is certainly insufficient anyway, but is there something as our trustee that the BIA can go after?
I think, right now at this point, kudos to the OMC for getting the grant money of the $3 million to, plug those orphan wells. I think that, the OMC, my advice to you would be to continue to do that. The agency does not have the funding, nor am I aware of any DOI, agency that would have those type of monies. I believe that that was a funding that was actually appropriated through an agreement with Congress. Is that correct? I could be completely wrong there, but I know that the OMC was the one that went in and got those monies.
I think we've kind of gotten sidetracked on what we started. I would like to bring it back to the question on the table, and if it's relevant to that, then I'll allow it. Go
It
ahead.
is, well, I mean, we were talking about the bonding, and I'm not, because it's more maybe a question for the Minerals Council and for you, just so I know, is that if what Councilwoman Harlan was saying is that we asked for a $5,000 bond per well, is that, am I correct in what I'm hearing?
That's what the regulations basically say.
So it's a
Yes.
regulation,
Per
that
quarter.
was my question.
It's in the CFR.
Quarter.
Per quarter,
Yes.
so up to 2,000 per, no,
5,000 per quarter,
so it'd be 20,000.
unless you've got a nationwide bond or there's another bond involved with.
Yeah, we have so many.
Right.
I've got the regs here.
I don't know if you all addressed that in your, but maybe we're not putting up enough bond.
We
That's a
addressed
different
it in
question.
CFR, but it was
I
pretty,
have-
it was pretty stiff.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what he said. I'm sorry.
Yes, we addressed it and when we worked on the CFRs, and that's
Okay.
why, as maybe our hesitation is we keep getting promised that some CFR changes are coming. We're waiting to see what those changes are.
This is what, may I?
Yes, please.
This is what the current regulations say, that such bonds should be in the amount of not less than $5,000 for each quarter or fractional quarter section covered by said lease, provided that one bond and the penal sum of not less than $50,000 may be filed to cover 10,240 acres. In lieu of a bond required, a bond and the penal sum of $150,000 may be a nationwide bond. So basically, we're looking at tracts of land that up to 10,240 acres, 50,000 bond would cover all of that. Fortunately, we do have some of our producers or lessees that do have a nationwide bond, but yeah, a lot of them, there's not an adequate bond.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of subjects. One, the $3 million that we keep referring to is not a grant. It was appropriated by the federal, the congressman, the federal government. You referenced other accounts. There's a well plugging, there is a well remediation account, and one called a wellhead account that we have some funding in. But back to the subject that Councilwoman Harlan brought up, and we've asked our council to research this and give us an opinion as to the liability of these wells. The 1,602 that you sent over to us, or that are considered orphan wells, I think that's probably a low number. I think it's much more than that. But those are not our wells. And I don't think that they're our responsibility. I think it's the Bureau of Indian Affairs' responsibility. And what I'd like to do when we get all this counting in from Jim Littleton's office, I'd like to send you guys a bill for the cost to reimburse us for the plugging of that well and every well. And you were talking about bonding and providing maybe a list or matching it up with certain tracks that might be on our orphan well list. The orphan well list you gave us had a column for which ones had bonds and which ones didn't. And almost, I'm just as a guess, I'd say at least 75% of our orphan wells in that column, it had the word yes or something like that, that it had bonding. So we need to, I guess, as we go through each of these wells, we need to go back to your list. If it says yes, there's a bond in place, then we need to come to you and ask you.
We've already given you those monies. That's what I'm saying, that when we collected bonds in the past, that was part of the money that we gave to, it's my understanding, part of the money that we gave to the OMC to utilize for the plugging
So
of
that's
those
probably
wells.
what our remediation
So-
account is. That's probably got funded.
So the
That's
thing
right,
is,
that's how.
So you've already given us all those bonds
Yes.
that are in that column. We've
We-
already got it. That's probably what created that 170,000, what we call remediation.
Yes.
Okay. For
so
clarity.
now, I don't, the only money is I have right now, I do need to get to Minerals Council to see what we can do. And what I would like to see are those funds that we've collected to be used on the wells that we terminated the lease. Because there's landowners out there that know that we collected that. And I don't think that that has been the practice in the past. And I really think that what we need to do also is, if you look at 226.29, it talks about the ownership of the well. So you might want to refer back to that and look at that.
Okay. Well,
Because it's talking about the disposition of the casing and other improvements on the property.
Okay, we got
well,
a,
just.
we got a question
Okay.
on the floor, and I want to vote.
All right.
Up or down, yes or no?
Okay.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Harlan,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar,
Yes.
Secretary Davis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, going on to the next, item, is Baker Petrolite disposal easement. Kevin Chestnut, are you in the, here?
Hey, sir, I am.
All right, thank you, come forward and,
Okay.
I apologize, I did not have any of my, information till just now. Prior to the meeting.
Okay, fair enough, I can talk through it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for any protocol violations, first time offending.
Welcome.
Me, this, my name is Kevin Chestnut, I'm the Director of Manufacturing at the Barnesville Manufacturing Plant for Baker Hughes, just down the road there in Barnesville. My environmental lead, Samantha Haddock, is with me today. She's the one who engages you all more, so she speaks on my behalf. On the 9th of January, there it is, it actually came up, we sent y'all a letter to discuss resolution number 3-47 that references the easement of our non-hazardous waste disposal well 6D. We've had this well, it's operated under various resolutions since 1973. The present resolution for the easement expires on the 16th of February of this year. And we would like to propose a new easement for a 5-year period, same as the last period. This one going from the 17th of February of 2020 to the 16th of February 2025. We would prefer, we'd like to keep the present agreement with the royalties as is at 25 cents a barrel. Our normal usage there at the plant ranges from 450,000 to 600,000 barrels a year. For reference, we paid easements $120,340.25 in 2019. So, I think we're paying a fair amount for the easement as well. And pending any questions, that's all I have to report or request.
I have a question.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes, Kevin, who is the operator of that disposal well? You have an easement, so it must not be your well.
It's a, pardon me if I'm not completely understanding, so we operate a UIC well, an EPA permitted, underground injection well for non-hazardous waste disposal. We operate.
You operate, Baker,
so
Baker is actually an
Baker-
Osage County
yes.
operator that has responsibility for this well. Why would you need an easement? I mean, I understand, usually we do easements on, if an operator wanted to put their water in somebody else's well, they could get an easement to do so, approved by the superintendent.
Fair enough,
But if
I
it's
don't know
a
for
control
sure
well,
what
I
it's an
don't know
easement,
why you need
and
it.
I appreciate the fact that we're paying royalties so this is Samantha and I's first at doing this. It was done 5 years ago, so we're using the same format, the same, letters that were used 5
Well,
years ago.
I'm just curious what zone you're injecting into. Pardon?
Robidoux.
Robidoux? What depth is that, do you know?
It's, approximately, I have to get the exact figure, it's approximately 3,500 feet,
Oh, pretty deep.
so.
Okay, well, that's all I have.
Probably the reason why he has an easement on it, because he doesn't have a lease.
Oh,
Very
good
well,
point.
very good, very good.
Good point. No oil and gas.
Councilwoman Gray?
Thank you.
Yes, so how long, did you say you've had this lease for how many years? Since
48, 1973.
Has it always been 25 cents per barrel?
No, I don't have that data handy, I mean, it has gone up over time, so periodically it's gone up. I don't know the last time the royalty rate went up. I didn't have to look at that. Okay.
For a 5-year lease, I mean, I think it would behoove us to, even if it was 26 or 27, I mean, it's a 5-year lease for them to injection well. And it hasn't been increased in a long time. And we don't really know the historic, the historic financial that this has been on, the Minerals Council that would be paid for our shareholders. So I'm just saying, I'm going like 26, 27 cents, that's
Well,
an
they're
increase.
referencing, Minerals Council 3-47 resolution. So there is some history recent. Councilwoman Foreman?
Well, and I agree with Councilwoman Gray, for 5 years, it's been 25 cents. To ask for 25 cents for another 5 years and having us agree to it before we know what the current market rate is for injection, barrels. And we can get that really easily, so I would almost recommend I do recommend we table this until we have time to research what the current market rate is per barrel for these injection fluids.
Councilman Rebar?
I agree with Councilwoman Foreman in Gray that we need to get going on whatever that is. And every couple of pennies over this kind of volume, it does add up, especially over a 5-year period, that we'd be locking the price in. But also keep in mind, if we look around at some of the other disposal wells where they have easements, we might find that they're paying twice the going rate. So
But we just don't know though.
we don't know.
I mean, yeah.
And I agree that we should do a survey and find out before we accept it.
We could make a motion to table and take this up again
I
on
so move.
February the 7th. And in the meantime, maybe we could forward this to our oil and gas expert in Oklahoma City. What's his name?
Tim Dow.
Tim Dow, right. And have him give us some counsel on it.
I second her motion, I don't know if you heard.
Okay. Could
What
I?
was
Motion
it?
on the floor.
What is
She
she?
made a motion
To table this until we have time to research the
Okay.
market
Table
value
till
of injecting fluids.
Table
Lacey,
till
do we
March,
need to-
February.
Excuse me. Lacey, do we need to include, no. David's he's our contract. He's under contract, so we don't have to have that in the motion, do we, to get that paid for? So, okay. Bert, you made a motion, who seconded it?
I did.
Call for the question.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, discussion.
The deadline, February 16th is coming up pretty quick. Is there something that we might could do while we do our survey and our research, is there a way is this a critical well? Will operations be shut down?
Yes.
if on September or February the 17th,
And
Yeah,
then
we'll-
Roxanne, is
we're
there?
meeting
We'll be
before.
here the 7th, so that'd be plenty of time
Oh,
to handle whatever they
Okay.
got. And I don't think there's a whole lot of trouble.
I understand.
But there is a question, you know, it's been 5 years and we wanna make sure that we're getting.
Totally respect that, absolutely. Yeah, I totally respect that, yeah, absolutely, and then to,
Okay.
and, you know, willing that they are, and then to, you know, whatever the going rate is. I get it.
Okay, all right, all right.
I mean, I just try and see what I can get by.
For a second,
That's
I'll call for question.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Harlan,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar,
yes,
Secretary Yates,
Abstain?
Councilwoman Foreman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Devin. Look forward to seeing you next month.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next on the agenda is BGI concession extension, Rex Rigetti.
Hello, Councilwoman, thank you. My name is Rex Rigetti, I'm with BGI Resources. We've been operating out here under concession since 2005. Over that time, we've generated 5.8 million in royalties. In the last 12 months, generated 442,000. At this time, we had a 1-year extension that is set to expire February 19th, 2020. Under that extension, this council, we offered, this council accepted 3 new quarter sections leased and 3 new wells to be drilled. Within 45 days of our extension, we nominated and got approved the 3 new leases. We have permits pending on each of those leases currently. And we have drilled 1 new well that we're working on completion, and it's looking pretty good. Like, it's been coming in around 30 barrels a day, which is great. So what we're asking for at this time is a short-term extension of 90 days to complete the other 2 locations. The permitting process took 258 days from when we submitted permits to when they were approved. We had a negative beetle finding, so we had to resubmit that. We had changes in casing requirement, and just the challenges of the environmental stuff going through Denver and the normal process right now as it is. So we are still working right now on getting a rig available to drill our next 2 wells. We hope to have the drilling started by our deadline of February 19th, but we don't believe that we have time to complete and evaluate the results of the wells, within our deadline. This is the first time since 2005 that we have asked for an extension to meet our requirement.
Council, any questions? Councilman Red Eagle?
Thank you, Chair. Considering how long it takes to get a permit, they said they've been waiting since February for some of these permits, and then they still, what I've heard from other council people, that they're still gonna do a survey once you get the permit, is that right? And that takes a longer time, so I would recommend giving an extension.
Councilwoman Gray?
Thank you for your letter and thank you for coming today. And also thank you for your graphs. I mean, that makes it so much easier for us to look at this of the snapshot of what you're up against. And, we've been working really hard to try to make sure and monitor the 258 days, and you're just asking for 90. I make the motion to grant the 90-day extension.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Discussion, motion on the floor. Council, or Superintendent.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, because the regulations at 226.9 says that the superintendent may, with the consent of the terms approved by the Osage Tribal Council, grant an extension of the lease for the purpose to obtain a market value. But are you saying that you're going to have these wells drilled prior to the expiration date?
Well, we're not asking for an extension of our leases.
Oh, okay.
We're fine on those. We're asking for an extension of the concession And the mill's also gonna be here, hopefully in February to start talking about the next year and the next process after that. But this time, we just want to make sure that we have the extension before we fail to meet a deadline.
I apologize.
So no problem. Thank you very much.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes, thank you. Rex, would you be so kind as to submit your well records associated with these new drills to the Mineral Council in addition to the superintendent? Logs and completion reports?
Same information you submit to the Bureau, we would like that information duplicated to our office.
Of course, very happy to submit.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions?
Good question.
Call for the question.
Councilwoman Harlan.
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle.
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes.
Secretary Yates.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, good luck. You've been good.
And thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, item C, Warrior Exploration, new lease, Mr. Robert Knapp.
Good morning.
Morning, Bob, how are you?
Council, it's nice to be here again.
Good.
Why every time I come here, my heart starts racing.
Oh, if it's
Been
good
here
or
enough
bad.
times now.
Yeah.
I am excited to let you all know that since December 1st, we've drilled and cased 9 wells, despite the holidays. So we're proud of our guys and getting it done. We got five new permits we just received last week. We're going to start building locations and get those drilled. So we're very happy to have guys out in the field working and to try and be drilling and completing wells. And along with that, I think that Lacey has up on the computer, up on the screen, we'd like to nominate and negotiate oil and gas leases for 2 quarter sections. Both of these quarter sections became of interest following the drilling program that I just mentioned, the 9 wells and the 5 more that we have to drill before spring. And then we also are going to have a total of 30 wells on this project are already basically ready to go. EA's been approved, all that, but after the burning season, we'll be able to get the locations that we didn't maintain or couldn't get for the winter this season will be available in the spring. And so we would like to lease these 2 quarter sections to expand this program and put it into our 2021 drilling plan. So I was asking for oil and gas lease, less coal bed. I don't know if you guys are doing that anymore. There's really no coal out here. But the same thing, we normally do $47.50 for lease bonus, 20% royalty.
3 years.
3 years.
Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Second. Motion by Councilwoman Harlan, second by Councilwoman Gray. Any questions? Pretty straightforward.
I have one.
Councilman Rebar.
It's just that, you know, we've talked about this at other meetings, but I don't like the idea of having our minerals severed like they are. And I'd like to keep it all together, and as leases come available, I'd like to try to get them merged back.
So just oil and gas.
So I'd like it
Got
not
that.
to lessen except the coal bed. now.
Okay, sounds good. We'll make it oil and gas.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
again, we're requesting that any records, drilling records, that anything you submit to Bureau of Indian Affairs, you duplicate and send to the Minerals Council for our record keeping. Thank you. All right.
I'll amend my motion to include that it's an approval of oil and gas lease. I'm agree.
Agreed by the second. Okay. Call for
Also need the legal description there too.
Okay. Northwest of 19, Township 27, Range 11. And northwest quarter section of 32, Township 27, Range 11 East. Ready? Call for the question.
Councilman Red Eagle.
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes.
Secretary Yates.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes.
Councilwoman Harlan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Sir?
I just like to ask Bob.
Councilman Rebar.
This production from this new well, I guess that spurred some offset locations for you. I'm just curious to know, is that oil production or gas production or both?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, we've already completed and put into production the first two that were drilled. And they're right about on target with what we're hoping, which is between 10 and 20 barrels a day and about 40,000 cubic feet of gas.
What formation is it? Mississippi Chat. Well, good luck and thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I wanted to mention, Robin pointed out too, that one of these quarter sections was previously leased by Performance and is being terminated for non-production. So we'll be happy to provide a letter accepting termination, whatever we need to do to allow for the lease.
Good deal.
I have one question too.
Councilwoman Foreman.
Are these two new quarter sections already covered by a gas purchase contract?
Yes, I
For the
believe
gas?
so.
Okay.
Osage Hills pipeline is the gas purchase.
Right, I just wanted to see if it's already covered, not much I can do about it, but if it's, if
New
you
gas
have to have a new gas purchase contract, I would like to see better value and better terms on, gas measurement and getting, well samples so we'll know what the, gas stream contains, that sort of thing. Get copies of those.
Okay.
Councilwoman Gray's got one more question.
Hopefully this is the last one. Well, thank you and wish you well on this, the new lease there. You know, in your letter, just so we know we're getting these verbal, I'll give you the well logs, I'll give you that. So, but if you in your letter that you will put it in writing that we will get this, and we'll probably be asking this from here on out because, you know, things can always go south, but if you would just put that, and we will provide all the well logs, so that way we have that.
Sure,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think in the previous meeting I gave Chairman Wall the USB, or I think one to him and one to build in, so.
Yeah.
I'll make sure, I guess you want me to submit them to Mr. Lynn or whoever?
To the chairman.
To the chairman?
Yeah.
Address it to the chairman.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But thank you.
Say Lacey and Lacey will take care of it.
Thank you.
All right, item D, Office of Special Trustee Update, System Change, Ms. Janelle Perry. You're up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janelle Perry, and I'm the fiduciary trust officer for the Office of Special Trustee. I met with the council last week and gave them an update on our system conversion, and they asked me to come today and provide one to the rest of the council as well as the shareholders. We have several items to cover today. It's been really busy for OST with the system conversion. The last couple of weeks, we've made a lot of progress. We've moved forward. These are rare circumstances where we have an accounting system changeover. So every day I go in and look and see how far we've come, and I've seen a lot of progress in the last couple of weeks. We were able to process payment on the date specified by the superintendent for the last payment in December. All of the money's moved over to IIM accounts for the beneficiaries. However, we did experience some issues with the data that converted from the old system to the new system in relation to payment instructions. And when I reference payment instructions, as all of you know, you're allowed to manage IIM accounts any way you want. We have folks that have voluntary hold accounts and they call and request money as they need it. We have folks that want their money to go directly to them by check or by direct deposit to their bank. We have folks that want that spread out over monthly or even weekly. And we did have some of those that didn't move over. It was a large amount of data. So we went in immediately, and as we were notified, or as we noticed that some of those didn't move over, we reported those to OST in Albuquerque, got the corrections requested, or we got the workaround we needed to address those issues. Now, if folks are still continuing to experience issues, I encourage them to either call the call center or call our office. I actually like to be notified if folks are having issues. That way I can personally look into it and follow up with it as it occurs. Some of the new functionality that we promised when we rolled over as far as account balances and being able to update addresses have not been made available yet. But I expect once we've kind of sorted out all of the issues, then senior leadership will give us the go-ahead to, for folks to access their accounts in that manner. Probably the most important thing I wanted to share with everyone today, and I'm glad I have this opportunity, is that if anyone experienced late fees or charges associated with the conversion, keep your receipts, keep your invoices, submit them to either our office or the call center, and we can submit those for reimbursement to IIM accounts, and we've received several of those so far. Our number here in Pawhuska is 918-287-5791 if you'd like to call us. And of course, folks are able to call the call center. They can do the same work that we do. And then I also would like to give an update on March payment, our upcoming payment. You know, on the last go around, we have some manual collections that were delayed due to the conversion. We were able to get those in and get payment processed. This time around, we've already gotten almost everything we need for the next payment, and we have prioritized the ones that are remaining. So I don't see any issues moving forward as far as processing the next payment. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Councilman Gray.
Yeah, I have several questions. Thank you, Jennifer, for coming. I was in the middle, I didn't get to stay for your whole presentation. I had an eye appointment that day. You know, last payment, you know, was, if we weren't on it, if this Osage Minerals Council wasn't on it, that would have been rolled over till March. And the one thing that, now that it's been an eye-opener, is that we need to have, and I believe previously, the Minerals Council had a gentleman, Mr. Vale, who would come in, they'd fly him up once a month, do the audit of everything from what was it submitted into the lockbox, and then, you know, deposited, or however you'll process that. On that same day that we were here, I'm not sure that these payments, and how can we be assured that from the lockbox, that those payments, once they hit there, I know that through our settlement agreement that they have 24 hours to get submitted. And what we found out is some of them were in there at least 6 weeks. And to me, that's unacceptable. So I believe that it would behoove us to do that type of auditing again to make sure that those payments, because if they're not submitted, they're not making interest. And it, you know, we're talking anywhere from, you know, 25,000 to over $1 million that could be in there. And I want to make sure that we're getting the top dollar for our shareholders. The other thing is, you know, what you just said about submitting for the late fees and receipts. Now, from what I understand, there's like 80% who either leave their money in their IM account, draw down as needed, do direct deposit by checks. But we have like 20% because of the crisis of our, you know, payments being so low. There are so many people that depend on those. Like you said, I know that there's monthly checks. I didn't know there was weekly, but people have to pay their bills. And when they were the ones, that 20%, that was probably a lot within our area here that saw, you know, they were worried about what, you know, payment did come out. We did, the notification was later than what we wanted it to be. But I just want to make sure that we stay in more contact with you. But how do we find out whether it's a call or there's got to be a better notification and communications that when we receive those royalty payments, that they are immediately, I mean, I think through the correspondence, we learned a lot through December payment, that we are one of the few agencies that have this lockbox system. You know, I have an app on my phone and it's called Venmo, and those pay cash apps, they are like immediate, like to my kids, my grandkids, when they say, Grandma, I need $10 or whatever, and then I just go, oh, here's $10, and it's sent. I mean, we have wire capabilities in this day and age, and I don't understand why we are using an antiquated process of a lockbox. And maybe that's something that we'll continue to work at, because what they said, I mean, someone said, well, it's been working for, past so many years, but it's not, it doesn't ring true in 2020. That I believe that there's a better system that we can work with OST on and the Bureau to get these, when a royalty payment comes in, it's immediately sent in and starts drawing interest. I mean, we're looking at every way that we can get the best price of everything that we have to our shareholders. But when we find out some things have been left in there for 6 weeks, to me, that's unacceptable. And that's basically, I'm not asking you anything, I'm just saying, we want to work with you, we want to get this straight, but I think lockbox is pretty antiquated, and willing to work with them to see what we can do to streamline.
Councilwoman Harlan.
The 6-week period, is that true that it's up there, or do you have that information today?
We had several that said there, but I'm gonna make a statement, which is interest did post to all of the funds. Even when they're in lockbox, interest accrues on the funds. And when we move them from lockbox to the PL account, all of the interest got posted. That was a misunderstanding. There is always interest included on those. The only thing that was delayed was moving those manual collections from that account into, the PL account. But interest was included and interest did accrue during that time. I don't disagree about the system of manual collections. I would love for everything to be automated like several of the funds that we collect are. My understanding is that the federal regulations that we currently have is what prevents us from being able to do an auto match. Ms. Phillips might have some follow-up on that as well, but that's, I believe, what we are waiting for. I readily welcome those matching. In fact, I think it's something that's been needed for quite some time. As far as keeping an eye on it, we actually were watching these manual collections very closely. We prioritize those Osage collections.
And I had questions, and she sort of jumped off on something else. Can I finish my questions?
Oh, please go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, no disrespect, but you're going down another path. So can you put that in writing to us, or Robin, can you put that in writing to us that the interest was collected? Because that was some information that was circulated among our shareholders, and well, I have no reason to doubt the authenticity of your word, our shareholders may. So could you put that in writing to us? And now I'll tender the floor back. I just wanted to finish what I was saying.
Sure. Janelle, did you have anything to finish what you were saying?
I was just listening to the question. I was trying to field all of those as they came in, and I can slow down and wait for those to come in singly. I was just trying to make it through the items.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said that the payment went through 8% pretty much, 'cause it's normal, and then the next payment should be good in March, but you never have addressed the special orders or special, the people that get them monthly, weekly, are those on board for today? At the present, are they updated for now? Are they updated for next month?
As of today, we have addressed the issues that we became aware of or that we have noted. I am watching them diligently to make sure that they continue to go out as they are supposed to. I mean, Honestly, this was a very stressful time for everyone at OST because it is a rare circumstance. There was a lot of stuff that moved over. The holidays hit. We worked late, we worked weekends. We tried our best to get everything back to normal as quickly as we could. And like I said, we also did note what needed to come up to speed in order to process this last payment. And we did prioritize those payments. So they were actually in the works when we received some of the communications around the time of the summit. So everything was being watched and monitored. I also do not disagree that I would like more press release to happen when we have occurrences of these types. Some of that is out of I wouldn't say our hands, my hands at the agency. That's a senior leadership type delegation. They let us know when we're rolling out the system. They send out the letters and the press releases. So, but I have also made that concern known that I do think more information is needed when we have something as large as this conversion from one to another.
Councilwoman, or Harlan.
Superintendent,
Yes.
can you provide the Minerals Council with a report or add it to your report that shows the monies that have been deposited and the interest that's accruing? Because we're not seeing that information currently as individual council members. I don't know if it's going to somebody, but it's not coming to me. If you could include that, and that way we could see and be more accountable to our shareholders about what's being deposited, what interest is collecting. We can keep an eye on it as well on our side.
So you would like that on the monthly report as an EFT comes in?
Right.
Then as it moves over from the lockbox into the PL account, it shows the interest that was accrued?
Please and thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Gray.
With the new, your system is called, is it?
Invest is the new system.
Okay, and then the Bureau's system is TAMS. Okay, so is there any other issues that between those two programs that there's difficulty in, it's just like having an iPhone to a Samsung, different things that you get the same, you can still make a call, you can still do some things, but they're different systems. And so is there any anything that we can do on this side to make sure that, or make recommendation that, I know that you've got probably the state-of-the-art system now. I mean, it's 10 years since settlement, so you have a new system, and then Bureau has an antiquated system. So is there any issues going on with that, or is it?
Well, there's always things you can improve. I mean, I look at my own banking the same way that you look at yours, and there's so much functionality now.
Right.
We're just gonna keep pushing to try to bring it up to date in today's time and be able to access things the way that we do with our current banking system. I also, I've recommended looking at what other agencies do, because we do have other federal agencies that process payments to people and do some of the same items. And I think it's time to start looking nationwide at those things and seeing how we can keep improving it, because even though our hopes are to move forward with this new program to make leaps and bounds, and I believe that we will, we still have a long way to go.
Right.
My personal feeling is the same as yours. I really would like to see these manual collections be able to be auto-matched. I know Ms. Phillips and I have talked about it for a while now, and it's something that's needed. We realize that as well.
Yeah. Just one more follow-up.
Sure.
Ms. Perry, we are getting ready to do a newsletter, and if we can get that letter about or some kind of statement that says from your office or OST that in order for those, that 20% to submit for reimbursement on bank charges,
Late
any
fees.
late fees that they accrued by the delay. Because I know some people were still calling up here, well into to January after the new year. I have not received my check. And that is devastating to go through the holidays like that. And now that we know that, and I think late fees on some things are, $25, $30, $35. And so when an elder has, their gas that comes automatically out of their check, or they have, so if we can do something specifically to that press release, we'll be more than glad to put it in our newsletter. That way it'll give an address, here's just give us the directions of how to submit. Because we're talking, a lot of us help our elder relatives on this, and they'll need some help.
Sure.
So, and I just don't want them to say, hey, call the call center, and, I'm up here, through the week, and I have fielded numerous calls about this issue, so if we can get that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you,
I
Chair.
will request
Thank you.
that today.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items?
Just a follow-up from our meeting on the 7th, I'm still interested in having Mr. Holliday come in from Albuquerque and give the council an update on how things work, our overnight interest accounts and PL accounts that we may or may not have.
I requested that, and I've actually spoken to Mr. Holliday since our meeting. He's ready whenever. I think what we're trying to do as far as the date is find out when the regional trust administrator is also available, so they can both be here on the same date. If
Okay.
you guys have some dates that are good for you, certainly let me know and I'll pass along that information.
Do we want on council meeting dates? Yeah.
What now?
Do we want a separate meeting or on council meeting dates?
I would say a separate day, because it's kind of time intensive. I mean, they come and walk you through the whole process and kind of explain to the overnight accounting and interest but I think it took like about a half a day maybe, anyway, so, yeah. You can get with the chair and Lacey, and they can schedule a date. I look forward to it.
The last one he presented took around an hour. He had a PowerPoint and went through that. He's working together a new presentation now that we switched to a new accounting system to have those graphs and everything that he needs to present to be ready, but
Okay.
he's ready.
All right, thank you so much for coming in and
Thank you,
explaining
guys.
everything.
Thank you, Janelle.
All right, the next item is executive. I don't think I have anything for executive. Do you, anyone interested in maybe a short break?
Yes.
Okay, motion for a break. Do we need a motion for that? Nope. Okay, we're gonna take a short 15-minute break. Don't nobody run off.
Do you want us to stay?